You a question about your new memoir that has just been turned in. Now, this is the first volume?
Yes. What this is, its subtitle is The Anatomy of Nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
So I start at my mother's deathbed. I spent the last 3 nights of her life at her deathbed. And then I start spinning and spinning off. And the cab goes past Central Park, so I go into Central Park in my mind, and I do the whole. Then I go down and I do and it turns out it was that part was all a dream. But anyway, it was but I scooped up everything, and then I go into the funerals. My father's first, my mother's. I have, since everybody's dead but my mother, she was 95. I have all the relatives as ghosts at the funeral. Talking, blah, 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 blah. And,
ghosts at your mother's funeral? That they're visiting?
At my mother's
funeral?
Yeah, they were hovering around the place. My father's funeral is described later, although it had happened first. And some funny stuff there. And then I go straight back to when we first went, I do the paradise routine, the sublime.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking Dante, or are you talking, when you say paradise routine?
No, just the idea of paradise.
Yeah.
So first I do growing up in Jackson Heights, from one age to the age of 4 in Jackson Heights, with the parties and then we're going out to Northport, and I spend the whole last chapter about his summers in Northport. And
your father's summers?
No, mine.
Yours.
His. I use it third person.
Mm-hmm.
No, my father was there, of course, my mother, my grandfather, and all the people on the porch. It was a harbor hotel,
Mm-hmm.
It was just and I used to just, listen and repeat words. I didn't know what they meant. And then there's a shocking moment where I'm building a sandcastle. I'm building the Flatiron Building.
Are you really building the Flatiron Building?
Yeah, I made a triangle, and I'm trying to, because my grandfather built it. He had a part of it. He was an iron worker. And suddenly from behind me I hear, "It had to be done, Catherine." And my mother says, "I know, Dorothy, but for a whole city to disappear in a flash of light." It was my father's 40th birthday, August 6th. And suddenly in my mind I saw New York disappear in a flash of light, and I went into practically catatonic shock. And then later in the day there was a clam bake because it was my father's birthday. And Hiroshima seemed to, the shock of it seemed to recede for that moment. And so it ends with my brother, who was really still my hero. He was my big brother, 10 years older. And he comes in to comfort me and put me to sleep, and that's the end of the book.
It also deals with your parents' marriage and
my mother's affair and my father's subsequent other woman, whom we never knew.
Was he involved with her for a long time?
I believe so, for a number of years. I never knew a thing about it until he was dead. My mother, it was sort of an open secret, not to us. I didn't find out until later. Till Kathleen kindly called me up and said, "Listen, I cannot carry this around. It's not really any of my business. I have to tell you." And I said, "Okay, let's meet for lunch." And she unloaded the whole story. And it made a lot of sense.
Who is Kathleen Connolly?
She's an old friend who died, Kathleen Howard.
Oh.
Yeah, and so from then on, my mother and I used to have vicious fights. That's a very long story. That's very complicated. It's all in the book. But, we used to hurl wild insults at one another. And one of them, blew the lid off her. Not that anybody was listening. It was up in Pinewood in Manhattan. She used to come up and see me in shows. And, "You whore."
Was that in reference to her affair?
Her affair in the 30s,
How did you find out about the affair?
Kathleen.
Kathleen told you everything.
Yeah, she said. It turned out 3 or 4 other people I knew too, but didn't tell me. And she said, I don't want to carry this around anymore."
Who was the man? Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, only that they were. My mother was selling furs on the road during the Depression, and it was her partner, and it took place in Port Jervis, of all places.
Port Jervis, New York.
New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, by the banks of the Neversink. Talk about a found, you know. And there were various other. There was no other. Never really getting love it, but it was. And there were lots of early things. My mother's screen tested Astoria, which she passed, but her father forbade it, and she despised him ever after, and he lived with us, you know.
So he killed a possible career.
Yeah. A possible, but she got a pass, you know. She got a pass. She got a pass. But she said, like that, she said the next year they found something else that they really wanted, and it was in Brooklyn, and she was called Clara Bow. And so what chance did anybody have, you know, at that time, you know, finally. So I said, yes, Clara Bow is the most wonderful silent film actress and the most famous woman in the world. So she laughed about it, but she was really bitter. Yeah, she was really bitter. Because her grandmother used to sneak her off. My grandmother used to sneak her off to the theater. Got a very, you know, they went to see Gene Eagles in Rain, which was at that time, you know, the talk of the town. You know.
Is it a relief to finish this volume of the memoir?
Yeah, it is, because it's all spiral and cutting back and forth and across. The publicity yesterday was very interested in it. But I said, you see, it'll never be done this way again. Hinting, you know, that I'm doing the second one, which I have practically already done, you know, I'm trying to get a contract. But, you know, those words are not spoken until, I think probably not until they see how well the book does. And I said, you know, after that, because first of all, the boy he keeps talking about killing his younger brother, right? And my brother would say, you'll get the chair. This is when I was around 5 or 6, and I said...
And you have a third brother?
Brendan, yeah, a little one. And he was 2 years younger than I was. I wanted to kill him. So I was going to throw a radio into the bathtub. But he was, my brother said, you'll get the chair. And I said, no, I won't, because I haven't reached the age of reason. And you can't. So the second volume begins with the age of reason, grammar school, and then it goes through high school.
It only goes through high school?
Yeah, and then there'll be a third one. Yeah.
That would cover the wild youth.
That would cover from college through Stonewall, our living in England. And then the fourth volume will cover the 70s. I haven't pictured it much, but there's a lot of. And then, as I said to Bob, while the iron doors close in 1979, there'll be nothing after 1979.
No more memoir.
No more memoir. No. Because that's when I got sober, and that's closed territory. By
choice. That you don't want to talk about.
No, what they say is, oh, see, I'm doing it now, and I shouldn't be.
Okay.
No.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
I just got carried away. I shouldn't. You know. Yeah.